Ikauche, abuiche, sira itse, sira iga ure, sat kum khawe, abuitzau, sira itzau, ikauche, sira itse, sira kuche, ne, sagasa sahu, kanusip, kuse. Ayo! Ayo daw! Ayo bare! Ramaphosa bare! Kay gangans! Kay se kure! Kay se hare! Gangan sire! Gangan sire! Kay gangans! Amen.
Kay gangan. Can we remain standing? Can we remain standing? May we please observe, let's observe a moment of silence. Thank you. May we all take our seats. Good morning. I would now allow our photographers for 2 minutes or so to take beautiful pictures of beautiful traditional leaders and the president. 2 minutes, media. Thank you. I can see everybody was smiling. Thank you so much. Honorable members of the National House of Traditional Leaders, our Honorable President of the Republic of South Africa, President Ubaba Matamela Ramaphosa, our ministers, the Speaker of Parliament and the Chairperson of the NCOP, Ingwenyama nendlovukazi ezikhona ngaphakathi abosihlalo bama provinces, uPresident we-Contralesa kunye nesigungu se-Contralesa and the NKC abangaphakathi. This sitting is called in terms of the National House of Traditional Leaders Act 2009, Act number 23. Section 8(1)(b), read with Rule 14 of the Rules and Orders of the National House of Traditional Leaders. In this sitting today, only the President of the Republic of South Africa speaks in terms of delivering the opening address. So it's only the President that will be allowed to speak, no one else. Let me take this opportunity, honorable members, ngamukele umongameli wethu weSouth Africa okhona la ngaphakathi bengihloniphe nawo wonke umuntu okhona la ngaphakathi. Mongameli, you are welcome to this august house. I want to further acknowledge our kings that are amongst us, Barena Babahulu, our queenship, Mojaji, ukumkani bethu, ingwenyama zethu, upresident we-Contralesa, okhona la ngaphakathi, uchairperson we-NKC ne-council yakhe, abakhona la ngaphakathi, abahlonitshwa abakhona ngaphakathi, usekela sihlalo wendlu upholi bendabuko umama umhlawuli okhona la ngaphakathi, amalunga wendlu akhona ngaphakathi nabuya kuma provinces abala ngaphakathi kwethu abaholi bezamabubulo abakhona ngaphakathi abafundisi abaphethe zomthetho intatanyiswa zonke ezikhona ezifaka phakathi labo abamalunga wamaKhoi and San communities abajamele zokuthindana our media directors generals abangaphakathi and all those that are present and those that are watching us from home or their places of comfort as we are live on channel 404. You are all welcomed in this sitting of the National House of Traditional Leaders. Honorable members, as indicated earlier, I am now going to call our guest of honor, the first citizen of the country, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, to deliver his annual address of the third session of the 6th National House of Traditional Leaders. Honorable members, please let us welcome the President of the Republic.
Thank you, Chairperson of the National House of Traditional Leaders, Nkosi Mahlangu, Deputy Chairperson of the National House of Traditional Leaders, Nkosikazi Mhlauli, Your Majesties, Kings and Queens of our people, Chairperson of the NCOP, Babu Amos Masondo, Speaker of the National Assembly, Mahmutandi Mudise, Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, Premiers who are here with us, members of the Portfolio and Select Committees, MECs, former chairpersons of the National House of Traditional Leaders, chairperson and deputy chairpersons of the provincial houses of traditional leaders and all traditional leaders present, chairperson of the IEC, Ubaba Glenn Mashinini, president of Contralesa, Koshi Mukwena, chairperson of the National Khoisan Council, Mrs. Cecil Lefleur, leaders of political parties, directors general, and heads of departments, delegates who are here, and fellow South Africans. Allow me to begin by expressing my gratitude to the National House of Traditional Leaders for this opportunity to address this House for the first time in the 6th democratic dispensation or administration. Sadly, since the last time we met, we have mourned the loss of some of our traditional leaders. These include His Majesty King Zwelonke of the AmaXhosa and the Deputy Chairperson of the Free State House of Traditional Leaders, Morena Solomon Sikonyela. The people of South Africa are deeply saddened indeed by the passing of these leaders who worked tirelessly to improve the lives of their people. May their souls rest in peace, and may we continue the work that they had dedicated their lives to. And may we also continue to learn from their excellent contribution. Majesties, exactly 2 weeks ago, right here in Cape Town, we commemorated President Nelson Mandela's release from prison 30 years ago. As he addressed the massive crowd that had gathered on the Grand Parade on the afternoon of the 11th of February 1990, he greeted the traditional leaders of South Africa. And he said, "Many among you continue to walk in the footsteps of great heroes like Hintsa and Sikukuni, he said. Indeed, the institution of traditional leadership has produced many heroes throughout our nation's history, right across the length and the breadth of our country. Our traditional leaders fought gallant fights to ensure that we regain our sovereignty as a people and that we emerge as the nation that we are today. In serving as repositories of traditional knowledge and custom and ensuring these are passed on to subsequent generations and championing the rights of your people in promoting development and progress, you continue to display heroism. The ripe fruit that is our national pride grows on the vine of tradition, of which you, the men and women who are gathered here, are the custodians. This government has consistently affirmed the important role played by traditional leadership in mobilizing our people behind a common vision of freedom, equality, and justice. We reiterate our commitment to work with you and to forge strong social compacts with institutions of traditional leadership as we strive and as we continue to strive to eradicate poverty, inequality, and underdevelopment in our country. Working with our municipalities, traditional leaders are currently playing an important role in driving development, especially in our rural areas. I cite the traditional policing initiative in the Eastern Cape and Limpopo as one example of the meaningful partnerships forged every day between government and traditional leadership. We have common concerns about the challenges facing our country, among them the incidence of crime, the grinding poverty that our people live under, and the unacceptably high unemployment. We are all worried about the high rate of urban migration, coupled with the fact that most of those leaving rural areas to the cities are young and able-bodied young women and young men. The state of our economy is the biggest concern that continues and should continue to occupy all of us. Whether we are in this parliament, a member of a traditional house, a business person, a shop owner, or a worker, or a student, we are all feeling the effects of our low economic growth. Rural areas are impacted greatly by an economy that is not growing and where jobs continue to be lost. This is fueling serious social problems such as substance abuse, alcoholism, and also gender-based violence amongst our people. As I outlined in the State of the Nation address, this is the year in which we focus on driving inclusive growth and building a capable state. This means, in the first instance, as I said, that we must fix the fundamentals. We must take inclusive growth and development to our people, to where they live, where they work, where they worship, and where they study, but also where they are suffering. We are moving away from the top-down approach to service provision that has resulted in wastage, in duplication, in mismanagement, but that has also resulted in corruption. We are, as we all know, implementing the district development model, And we have already launched it in 3 districts and will continue to roll it out until we have reached every one of our 44 districts and 8 metros. Through this, we are aiming to ensure that the delivery of services is properly planned and managed and considers community needs and is properly budgeted for. What this model has given us an opportunity to do is to look more closely, and may I add, introspectively, at every district that spans the length and the breadth of our country. We have been able, in the 3 districts where we have launched this district development model, to have a microscopic look at each of the districts. Having started off in O.R. Tambo district in the Eastern Cape, we were able to look very closely at the incidence of poverty and how poverty manifests itself, and look also at the suffering of our people, the lack of services, more closely than we may have in the past, as we were doing it on a more globular basis in a focused manner. We were also able to look at the opportunities for development. And this district development model, therefore, gives rise to a number of great benefits to our nation. Having started off in a more rurally based district at O.R. Tambo, and having moved to a more urban district which has rural features as well, in eThekwini, we then looked at another district which is much more of a mining area of our country, also with rural features. This has given us a much deeper look at what needs to be done. And we believe that once the district development model is rolled out comprehensively across our country, we will have line of sight and be able to intervene to improve the lives of our people. And this we will be able to do through the various Khawuleza forums that are being set up in each district. And through this model, we want to make sure that economic development happens in a structured manner across the nation. And it also helps us from moving away from the silo approach of government intervention. It gives us the great opportunity of practicing what is set out in our Constitution about the various spheres of government working together in a cooperative way, in an interdependent way, and in an integrated way. The investment that is coming into our country will also have a greater chance of being channeled properly through the rollout of the district development model. And it should not just be concentrated in the urban areas or in the metros, but also in the municipalities where our people need work most, and where they need facilities and where they need services. It must also be channeled into the rural areas of our country. Through the provincial growth and development strategies, every province is rolling out development that supports economic activity in our cities, as well as our towns and our villages. Our rural areas mustn't be places that young people leave and only to return when they retire. This trend must be reversed, and we have the great opportunity to reverse it, especially if we are going to resolve one of our biggest challenges of land access and ownership. The date for the closing of submissions on the 18th Constitutional Amendment Bill, which seeks to amend Section 25 of the Constitution of our country, will soon be upon us. This, in many ways, is a crucial time for the land reform process. Traditional leaders were at the forefront of making contributions on this matter, and the National House of Traditional Leaders referred the bill to all houses of traditional leaders in January 2020. Your participation as our nation's traditional leaders is absolutely crucial. It should be further noted that at the traditional leaders in Durban in 2017, it was resolved that there should be a presidential summit on land. I'm pleased to say that this summit will take place this year. The House has been holding discussions on this matter with the ministers of cooperative governance and traditional leaders, as well as the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform, and Rural Development. It is important that each provincial house, assisted by the relevant provincial government, have their own engagements to inform the process leading up to this summit. The consultations need to be broad and representative, and I'd like to urge you to canvass as widely as possible with a whole range of entities, including non-governmental organizations, faith-based organizations, business youth formations, women's groups, and people living with disabilities as well. As you will also be aware, we established an advisory panel on land and agriculture chaired by Dr. Vuyokazi Mahlati. The panel produced a report that indicated several shortcomings in our land reform policies and programs. Now, government, in partnership with the National House of Traditional Leaders, is looking into the issues raised by the report to address the shortcomings that they have highlighted. We are looking at the examples of other African countries to learn how they deal with land tenure and about their land rights, as well as how they keep the records of those land rights. At the same time, we are involving traditional communities in the agrarian reform movement. A study trip which was undertaken by a number of people from our country to Benin in August. It also included representatives from the National House of Traditional Leaders and government. They looked at community-based agricultural development model in a rural setting in a country like Benin. And I must say that various countries on our continent have a lot to teach us, as they have already traversed the ground that we are seeking to traverse now. The delegation came back impressed by what they experienced, and we should ensure that the practical insights gained from this trip inform and benefit our work going forward. As we look to promote inclusive growth and development in rural areas, we should look to mining and tourism as high potential growth areas, with both having the potential to change the lives of the communities where our people live. In previous engagement with this House, traditional leaders expressed the desire to strengthen their working relations with the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. I'm pleased to hear that progress has been made towards finalizing a working relationship. Our Constitution specifically enshrines the principle of sustainable development. As part of ensuring that development is sustainable and deepening participatory democracy, we will continue to ensure that there is proper and adequate consultation on all matters relating not only to mining, but all economic development. We will continue to insist that the law is followed on environmental impact assessment studies. Likewise, mining companies have to engage in proper consultation themselves and arrive at appropriate agreements so that we are able to show what they are going to be proposing in relation to community development programs. But these programs must have been jointly arrived at. Tourism is another sector that can breathe new life into areas facing economic hardships in many places where our traditional leaders have responsibility. The areas under the custodianship of traditional leaders are rich in culture and heritage. The development and marketing of heritage sites will create much needed job opportunities and improve local economies. It is pleasing to note that the National House of Traditional Leaders has been engaging with the Department of Tourism and that both parties have agreed on various approaches to improve tourism in our rural areas. Our own people must take the lead by visiting and appreciating culture and heritage sites across our country. And this will give the people of South Africa the opportunity not only to know their own history, but to get to know their country as well. Majesties, we must acknowledge that despite our progress, we have much still to do. And a number of areas we still need to work out quite a number of issues. With regard to the powers and functions of traditional leaders, in July 2018, the National House of Traditional Leaders established a task team to work on the powers and functions of traditional leaders, supported by officials from the Department of Traditional Affairs. Following the completion of its draft report, it is now expected that consultation on the draft will be held within government. These are complex matters that should be afforded enough time and the due attention that they require. The determination on government side to have this matter addressed and resolved remains very strong. There's also the matter of succession disputes, which continues to demean the institution of traditional leadership. The House of Traditional Leaders, with the help of the Department of Traditional Affairs, is required to document all customary laws of succession and the genealogy of all our traditional leadership. Once this is done, it will help in curbing the number of traditional leadership disputes that continue to rise. The institution of traditional leadership has its own internal mechanisms to resolve disputes. Houses of traditional leaders must seek to ensure that these mechanisms are indeed applied so that disputes about issues of succession are not continuously referred to the courts prematurely as well. A significant milestone has been achieved since we last met. In November, I signed the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Bill into law. That gave me an opportunity to drink water. I now know what makes you very excited. For the first time, we have a piece of legislation that provides for the recognition of the Khoi and San leadership. And for us, this is important because it talks to our history as a nation. We will soon determine the date on which this important act will take effect so that the actual work of implementation can then take place. Majesties, we need to address another issue, and that is the issue of the abuse of cultural practices that result in the violation of the human rights of our people. Customary initiation is a rite of passage of our young people to manhood and to adulthood. But it has become increasingly infiltrated by unscrupulous people, and many young men are being maimed, and some of them are losing their lives. It cannot be that every year we sit here and say the same thing about needing more to do the work that needs to be done, but at the same time, the death toll continues, and more of our young men die. We urge traditional leaders, as custodians of culture, to take this cultural practice back into your hands and improve it accordingly. This is your area of responsibility. Do not allow unscrupulous people, thugs, gangsters, to take this very important tradition over. It is your responsibility. We further call on you to work with South African Police Service to ensure that those who are involved in these unscrupulous practices are arrested and charged. Because quite often, as these things happen and unfold in the areas where you live, it is generally known who those people are. These things don't happen somewhere in the ether or in space. They happen exactly where our people live. And the perpetrators are known. And you are the ones who must work with the South African Police Service to make sure that these unscrupulous people are rooted out, because they have no place in our communities if they are going to do things that will result in the death of our young people. This includes forceful abductions to initiation schools, because this is also happening. Once it becomes law, the customary initiation bill that is currently before the National Council of Provinces should serve as a critical empowering law to regulate the practice of customary initiation. Ultimately, we should all play our role to ensure that our young men's lives are preserved. We must do more at the same time to foster and support the empowerment of women, and to end all forms of gender-based violence, rape, and femicide against the women of our country. We once again commend the resolutions taken by the National House at the Chivizo in Mpumalanga last year, where all houses committed to work towards capacitating rural women in particular. We further welcome the female traditional leader structures, which include spouses of traditional leaders. This is a good initiative which will end the poverty of information, but which will also instill a sense of belonging and joint development. As we said in the State of the Nation address, the empowerment of women is critical to inclusive economic growth in our country. We want all women, rural and urban, to participate in and benefit from platforms such as, or initiatives such as She Trades ZA, which aims to connect women-owned businesses to global value chains and markets. Women need to benefit from all funding initiatives introduced by various government departments. The issue of the empowerment of women is one that we as South Africa have also made a key area of focus at the African Union. As we carry on with our chairship of the African Union, we have put it on the agenda of the African Union that the continent must embark on a variety of initiatives to empower the women of our continent. And to this end, when we had the summit in Addis Ababa, a fund was set up to empower the women of the continent. And South Africa also proudly committed money to this continental fund so that we can power the empowerment of the women of our continent. That demonstrates our seriousness about empowering the women of our country as well as of our continent. With regard to youth development, the National House has signed a memorandum of understanding with the local government Youth Development Forum. Through this partnership, traditional leaders will work with the forum to engage municipalities to capacitate young people on a variety of skills. The House has also started a project on development of young traditional leaders to prepare them to be effective and efficient in leadership positions. Furthermore, the Department of Traditional Affairs is working with other institutions, such as the National School of Government, to develop a curriculum on leadership development, including building the capacity of young traditional leaders. We should also support the redesigned National Rural Youth Service Corps program of the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. As part of implementing the district development model, 1,000 young people have been enrolled from the 3 pilot sites of OR Tambo, eThekwini, and Waterberg. These young people will be equipped with agricultural and life skills, after which they will receive practical support as they embark on relevant farming projects. Minister Didiza and Minister Dlamini Zuma have been the real moving actors in getting 1,000 young people being brought together at Tabanchu to be trained in a variety of skills. And the first part of it is just to train them in discipline. And the South African National Defense Force is participating with them in that. And thereafter, the various other departments, including agriculture and a number of others, are going to impart very valuable skills. And I'd like to thank the two ministers, Minister Didiza and Dlamini Zuma, for having had the foresight and the vision to get this off the ground. And I thank them for that. Now I would like the Institution of Traditional Leadership to support these young people on their return, because this is a broad-based initiative. As they return, we would like them to return to the areas where they've come from, and that traditional leaders should then support them because they will be so well skilled. We don't want them to loiter around with these important skills without doing anything. So they will need to put these skills into practice. And some of these are going to be in agriculture, and some of these are going to be in a number of either semi-engineering skills and so forth. And we would therefore like our traditional leaders to give them access to productive land so that they can put into practice what they would have learned. Your Majesties, you occupy a unique position in our society, one of both influence and respect. As Mahatma Gandhi once observed, a nation's culture resides in the hearts and in the souls of its people. That you are the custodians of our rich heritage and traditions confers a great responsibility to use your influence for the benefit of others. We would like to continue working together with you to address the challenges that our communities face. But we would also like to continue working together with you to address some of the challenges that you face in executing your own tasks. We know that you need support to enable you to execute your tasks. And we've often spoken about an important issue which I am sure is going to be raised quite a bit as we continue with this debate, the tools of trade. You have said repeatedly, in order for you to execute the tasks that the nation expects you to execute, you need to have the adequate tools of trade to be able to do your work. This matter is an important matter and clearly has to be addressed. We continue to address it in a number of ways, but clearly it will take time, but we would like you to work with us as we address it, and the patience that will be required to make sure that it is fully addressed will be required on both sides. We are committed as a government to work together with you to strengthen the institution of traditional leadership in our country, to enable you as an important aspect of our government system to execute the work that you have to do. The challenges that our country faces are challenges which we can address jointly and quite effectively. And if we work together, which is the real principle that we are trying to inculcate in all of us, that we will be able to resolve the many challenges that we face. Let us build the South Africa that we want and the South Africa that you, as our traditional leaders, also want. I thank you.
Siyathokoza Mongameli, sithokoza begcwale umlomo ngenkulumo osinikele yona. Bengibawa bonda bezitha ke simnikeleni izandla viyoro Mongameli ngenkulumo osinikele. Sithokoze Mongameli. There are a few people that we did not acknowledge earlier. We have some of our important guests that are coming from outside of the country. We have King Z from Ivory Coast, who is also amongst us. And Khosi Khaberoni from Botswana, who is our partner, who is also amongst us. You are welcome, Khosi. And also, some from the Chapter 9 institution that are here, the leaders of Chapter 9 institutions, who are our partners that we are working very well with, the CRL rights. I've seen the IEC commission chairperson is also amongst us. Also our general, who we formed very good working relations in terms of making sure that crime is eradicated in our own communities. You are welcome, General, as part of this engagement, and our honorable ministers that are here. Thank you so much for being here, and the deputy ministers that are here. It is an honor for us that you've honored this invitation, and you are part of us to support our minister and the president in this big task that is ahead of us. It is highly, highly, highly acknowledged. I think, press, for the first time, our Khoisan community are here officially because you've signed that into legislation. Thank you so much. You are most welcome. This is your house. Thank you. The speech of the president will be debated on the 27th. That is Thursday this week at 10 at the same venue. And President, the ministers that are here, we will plead that they must be there as well. And some more ministers, if it is possible.